All right, I'm Sandy Powell, and my mother and father were original members with Dr. Sadler in the forum. And so let's see, they joined the forum in 1935, and I was born in 1941. I had two older sisters. So I really upset me because right around the corner, everybody went to church, and I would ride my bike, longing to go to church, but my parents didn't go to church. However, on Sunday afternoon, they went to forum, and we had to go to forum for 2 hours, from 2 until 4. And Dr. Sadler would sit up there in front of in the podium, and I would like to sit next to the window because I could look out and not pay any attention. I'm ashamed to say. And anyway, so we grew up with this was a secret. Nobody could tell anybody about the Urantia papers, what we did on Sunday afternoons. So in 1955, when the book came out, it was still a secret to me. So people have asked me, well, why didn't you tell people? And I said, because it was a secret. And so I kept it a secret until about 3 or 4 years ago. And people, when you meet new people, they say you're talking religion, they want to know what church I was brought up in. So finally, I had the courage to say, well, I was brought up Urantian. They said, what's that? And I said, well, my parents read the Urantia Book. What's that? How do you spell it? So I was very shy about it at first, and then I realized that before my father died, I have two older sisters. He said, I hope that one day one of you girls will at least read the Urantia Book. Well, I knew my sister Sarah wouldn't. She was absolutely not interested at all. And my sister Sue had already passed away. And so I got in touch with Barbara Newsom. And Barbara Newsom happened to be one of the students of my mom and dad. My mother and father had a study group every Friday night in their home. And if my parents came down to Champaign, Illinois to take care of my kids, they loaded up my children, took them back to Western Springs, and they had the study group. So in other words, my mom and dad never missed a study group, never missed a meeting, wow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So at any rate, I told Barb I was interested, and I said, but I hate to tell you, I said, I have never read the Urantia Book. I'm so ashamed. Never too late, Sandy, never too late, says Barbara Newsom to me. So we arranged to meet each other in Oak Brook. So I was interviewed, and there was another girl there by the name of Julia, and she was a new reader also. So the long and the short of it now is that once a month I drive up to Western Springs, and Julia hosts the Western Springs study group, which actually we're very spoiled. Julia and I are the only new readers, and we have Barbara Newsom and John Hales as our teachers. But John Hales' parents also grew up with the Urantia papers. Yeah. And so there's a long history with myself, with Barbara, and with John. So now I'm reading the Urantia Book, and I absolutely love it. Do you want me to tell them about the papers? So when now I'm very vocal about the fact that I read the Urantia Book. So just recently, one of my friends said to me, well, Sandy, I kind of like to take a look at it. I'm kind of curious. And I said, okay. I said, well, Diane, I want to tell you something. I don't care if you don't believe in it at all, but if you want to fall in love with somebody, I said, you need to start with, I think it's paper 127. It's the birth of Jesus. And then you go through the childhood and everything in his first time at Pentecost, his relationship with his brothers, and then when he finally does go out on his own, and when he starts preaching and leaves the family unit, and how responsible he was at any rate. So I came to the study group and I said, I have absolutely fallen in love with Jesus. And I don't care if you don't believe in it, you need to read about this wonderful man. So anyway, that I'm still learning, and I remember at Easter that we were reading about how Jesus chose his disciples. I don't remember what papers they were, but I could hardly wait to wake up the next day and go all the way to the end. So some of it's very, very difficult. A lot of it's very, very difficult. But the more you read, the more you really, really, really want to read it.
And you were saying that you're like having a new relationship with your parents or something.
Oh, I forgot about that. The neatest thing of all is that, when you're growing up, your parents are parents. You really, you're a child and a parent. But now that I'm reading the Urantia book, I am having a new relationship with my parent, because now I know the way I was brought up, and I love my parents now more than ever. And it's really, really neat to be in a relationship with them now. And my father died in 1986 and my mother died in 1998. So I am now just being reborn with my parents.
Wow. What were their names?
Mary Inez Birch and Arthur Milton Birch.
Do you want to say anything more about their lives? What they worked with or what they
My
were?
lives. Their lives.
And your life maybe too?
Well, my father and mother were totally devoted to the Urantia book. The Urantia book was in their blood. And my mother and father were best friends. They were inseparable. And I know it's all because the Urantia book preaches family numbers, is number one unit. And everything is family's number one. And they really lived it. And I don't know, my father was a mechanical engineer. My mother was a home economics major. They both went to Purdue. They graduated in 1927. They went through the Depression, and they had to live with my father's parents in Oak Park during the Depression. My father shoveled coal. And so on Sunday afternoon, they didn't have any money. There were lectures that they could go to. So they just happened to go to a lecture that Dr. Sadler was giving, and from there on, they started reading the Urantia book. And I'm following now, hopefully, forever, I will, but I have not completed the book. And there's still so much for me to learn, but I'm very happy learning, and really I'm very happy my father will be happy that one of his girls is reading the Urantia book.
Was it something special that sparked your curiosity to decide to read it?
No, it's just that I wanted to devote. No, because I wanted to fulfill my father's wish.
And to understand what their beliefs about where they are going when they die.
I had no idea. I will tell you one thing, though. One thing that was really, really special for me is my parents were not afraid of death. And they didn't believe where they were going. They knew where they were going. And so when I think the word term is correct, I'm still learning. They graduated. So when they graduated, of course there's grief of losing a loved one. My mother was the one that was by herself for 10 years. But she was so strong, and I think what kept her strong is because she knew Arthur, that would be where he was, and that she too would join him. It was just knowledge that there was no belief. They knew where they were going. And that was very good it was good for us. We didn't grieve like most people are afraid of death. They weren't afraid.
And I think you said something about that you always look forward to that you would go have ice cream after the forum meetings.
Oh, well, actually, it was during the break. So we met from 2 until 3, or maybe it was 2:45, and across the street was a coffee shop. And so I could hardly wait because I got a fresh glass of orange juice and a pecan roll. And then I could manage to survive until 4 o'clock when we went back. It was a 15-minute break. It wasn't ice cream, it was orange juice and a pecan roll.
And they would just kind of read out loud the papers.
Yes. Oh, yeah. My mother from Western Springs, when we went off to school, she'd hop on the Burlington, she'd go to the Union Station, she'd take a bus, and then she'd transfer to another bus, and she would spend hours, I guess, in a little room checking out the papers, and then she'd have to return them.
Wow.
And then she would come back in time for us to be home from school.
Mm-hmm. Do you, was it like kind of a community feeling, or was it mostly like, were people a lot of friends with each other? Like your
I didn't
parents?
have any friends because Larry Bowman was the only child at that time in the forum.
And you were 16?
I had to be, well, I was born in 41, so I went to forum when I started going to forum when I was really young, probably 7 or 8. I mean, they didn't get babysitters, so I have no idea.
Wow.
Yeah, we went Sunday afternoons though.
Wow. So yeah, you were kind of in your wow.
I can't even remember the exact age. My sister Sarah might remember, but because she was 4 years old.
But then you kept going until you were a teenager.
Oh yes.
Because you were required to go.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. When I went off to college, I didn't have to go anymore.
But you went even when you were older teenager.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yes. Like children who grew up in churches.
Yeah.
They go, to youth groups.
Yeah.
I went to forum.
Did people? I imagine back then people smoked at the meetings.
That's a good question. I don't remember anybody smoking.
Yeah, because I think it was just common that people smoked everywhere.
I know. You know what? I don't remember that at all.
But were your parents close with other people in the forum?
Oh, inseparable. Totally. Yeah, enmeshed.
The Sadlers too, or do you?
I remember Dr. Sadler. I remember Lena. I remember Christy. I remember going up on I must have been on Jesus's birthday. We would celebrate up on Lake Michigan. They had a big home over the lake and on the lake, and we'd go up there for picnics. That was the most fun. That's the best part of the Urantia Book, was going up to Lake Michigan to Dr. Sadler's home. Yeah, I remember all those people.
Do you remember what was your impression of them? Were they kind to you, or how were they?
Oh yes. Dr. Sadler was wonderful to everybody. Very kind. In fact, that's what's so wonderful about the Urantia Book. There's a lot of love, and that's what we're supposed to love. All the teachings in the Urantia Book is all about love. Love one another. It's not about me. It's about what you can do for your fellow man. And they say it in I think the Urantia Book for me is more like a story that's written that you can really, you just take a trip, at least in the Jesus papers. The other ones, you have to be more academic. I take more notes. But I love the way that the Urantia Book, when I first started, is so beautifully outlined. So, I'm an outliner from when I grew up. And so you have an introduction, and then the introduction that is broken down to one, paper, or part 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, until it's finished, and it covers everything that was in the introduction. That made me it made it easier for me to study.
Do you want to say anything else about your life? Like if you've had a family or career or hobbies?
I was a stay-at-home mom, and I loved my job. I loved being a stay-at-home mom, a housemaker, or a housekeeper. I loved being a nanny, so to speak, or I loved taking care of my children. I loved raising them. I loved my job. It's the best one you could ever have.
And you were a triathlete.
Oh yes. I'm definitely, since I was born, I was an athlete. I mean, first of all, girls weren't allowed to do sports. And so when my friends hung up their bikes, when you go into the 7th grade, I would ride my bike anyway, and kind of frowned upon. And then I was a swimmer, and on the Chicago swim team and the Lakeshore Club team. And then I was a diver, and then I went off to Purdue. I was a home ec and a physical education major. So I would be able to be acceptable, you know, being athletic, because we could be athletic, you know, in my field.
Mm-hmm.
But then I went on and got a master's degree at the University of Illinois in physiology of exercise, and that was the beginning of the running movement when I was 21. And I was the only girl running. They have a great place out that they call the South Farms, and I put a hat on kind of incognito because only guys were running out there. But so I ran and I swam and I rode my bike and had to ignore everybody who called me a jock. I will always have long hair because I don't want to be called a jock. And then finally, the running movement became very popular. So other people, girls, started running, and then we had that Title IX program where they had girls' athletics in colleges. And so I became more acceptable, but I will tell you that I ran my first marathon when I was 35 years old. There are only 360 some people in the marathon at the Drake relays. And there are only like about 48 women or girls. They're all men. And then the first women's running shoe was made when I was 39 years old. And then when I was 47 years old, I just wanted to go. I saw the World Championship triathlon. At that time, there was only one. When I was 47, I think the triathlon at that time was only in its 7th or 8th year. But anyway, so they have qualifying races in different states. So I went to the Endurathon in Muncie, Indiana. There were 3 slots available in my age group. So I qualified. And then I did the Ironman competition in Hawaii, and which is a 2.5-mile swim in the ocean. Then you hop on your bike and you do 112 miles and back, and then you do a full marathon. And the swim has to be completed in 2 hours and 15 minutes, or you're automatically disqualified. Then you have to do the swim and the bike in 10.5 hours, or you're automatically disqualified. And you have to complete the whole thing in 17 hours. If you come over 17 hours and 1 second, you didn't do it. You don't get your medal or your t-shirt. So I did it in 16 hours and 9 minutes when I was 47.
Wow.
So I have my t-shirt.
Wow.
And I have my medal.
That's amazing.
So yes, and that's who I am. I'm that person today too. I'm still swimming 3 times a week.
Wow.
You know, I'm walking, and I bike in the summertime, and I ride my horse.
Wow.
My new horse now. Yeah.
I thought of one more question. Sir Hubert Wilkins was this famous explorer, and he went to the forum sometimes, but do you remember?
No, but I think I read about him, didn't I?
Probably.
Recently?
Probably.
Were they the ones that were negative about?
No, that's the Sherman.
Oh, that's
That's
Shermans,
Harold Sherman.
I thought.
Yeah.
When I read that, I thought, how dare them not just insult Dr. Sadler. I was devastated that they would,
So you felt loyal, like a love for them?
Oh, totally. I was in love with Dr. Sadler in the Urantia Book, only because it came from my parents.
Yeah, but also that they were kind and...
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were like sort of a family feeling.
Yes. It was wonderful. I loved it.
Were there any other people that stood out as sort of leaders or people that...
I just remember Christy.
And Lena?
And Lena. Yeah, it's surprising. But I thought I thought Lena died in 39, and that can't be, can it? If I was born in 41. Maybe it was all the talk about Lena. So it must have been, as a child, it must have been Christy and Dr. Sadler. But I know there was a lot of talk about Lena, so I'm not so certain I really did know her. But everybody should know Dr. Sadler. It was a privilege now, I realize.
Do you remember anything else about him that you want to say, or that comes to mind?
Just a happy, jolly man.
Mm.
I mean, somebody you respect and admire,
Mm.
because he was just a great man. And I didn't really even know that. Except, as a child, that's the way I saw him. Somebody very, very important.
Mm.
Does
Well,
that make sense?
thank you. Thank you so much for this
You're
wonderful,
welcome.
wonderful interview.
You're so good to do that.
Bye.
Bye. I love the book.
Mm.
I love my parents and Dr. Sadler and Christy.